Content of the video. Now let's make things a bit more dynamic by adding some variables and using some functions and some other tools in the template itself. So I'm going to go into PHP Storm, and what I want to do is inject the current action into the template to have it assigned dynamically instead of writing it into the template itself. So from any controller action, you can get the name of the action. So I'm say controller action by typing this request, which gives you a reference to the current request object, and then get action name. I'm gonna call it current action. And then we have to assign this value to the view by saying this view, which again gives us a reference to the view object, and then assign current action and set the value that we just got from the request. We want to do the same thing in the foo action, so I just copied this and pasted it in here. And then I'll go into the index.tpl and I'll plug in, and I will replace this simply with the action, with the variable that I have set, which is current action, and do the same thing in the foo.tpl. So now in a controller action, the action dynamically gets injected into the view or gets passed to the view as the identifier current action. And in the template, we can simply use the dollar notation to have this displayed. So any action we call will still display the corresponding name, but this time it's dynamic. And the good thing about this is that we can actually merge this duplicate code by simply putting it into a single action. So I'm gonna put it into the pre-dispatch method, because this pre-dispatch method gets called every time any of the controller actions is called. So I will put it in here, and we can remove the duplicate code from both of these methods and still have the current action variable present in our template. So I just reload it, and you see it's still working, and we have saved lots of code lines by saving this duplicate code. Now there's another place where we can save some lines as well, because if you compare the foo TPL and the routing demonstration index TPL, you will see that they both have the same content. So we can also apply this inheritance principle to our own files by saying that the foo TPL is not supposed to extend from the parent index or the front end index, but from the front end routing demonstration index. So this is going to tell Smarty to look inside the front-end routing demonstration folder for the index TPL, and then simply use this as a base for our file. And because it is in the same directory, we can also leave out the parent. And we can simply remove the block, because it is already in there. And we just inherit all the stuff that isn't there. And if we now reload the page for the foo action, it is still displayed. So simply to show you that we can take this a step further, this whole inheritance principle, I will copy this front-end index content block from the index TPL and go back to the foo TPL and paste the block there. And then I'll close it before I forget it afterwards. And now we can put something in here. What this would do is simply replace this block, so the old heading, with some more text, which is just what we did before, right? So if we're going back here, it just says some more text. The interesting thing is if we want to also inherit the contents of this block from the other template and maybe just append some stuff to it. In order for that to happen, we have to reference the old content of the block by saying $smarty.block.parent. So this is gonna look for the block named frontend index content inside the file that we are inheriting and paste it at this very position. So you see, it takes the content of the block in the index TPL, which is this h1 heading, pastes it before the text that we added to the template before. So this is how the template inheritance works as well if you want to paste the contents of the blocks that you want to extend or that the ones that you override. Now let's add a link between these two pages simply to save the URL writing here always to switch between the pages. I just want to have a simple link which says next page and leads me to the other page. So we obviously have to first set a link to the next page or assign a link to the next page in each action by saying this view assign next page. And we well, this is something we can't do dynamically. We just have to say which will be the next page that we want to route to. So if we're in the index action, we want to set foo as our next page. And if we're in the foo action, we want to set index as our next page. So then going back to the template, we have to add the link, obviously. So we can say a and next page, which is a simple link setup that you most probably know. And now we're going to use a Smarty modifier. The modifier is called URL, and it simply assembles you a shopware URL by you specifying the module, the controller, and the action you want to have the URL to. So what we want to have is the module is obviously front end, the controller is routing demonstration. Make sure to use the camel case writing, the snake case writing there, and the action is, well, simply what we passed into the template, right? So don't put it in hyphens, but put it in, yeah, just write it down with a dollar in front of it. So say next page is the action. And now you can see we get the link displayed down here. And if you look down at my left screen corner, if I hover the link, you will see that it is a link linking to routing underscore demonstration / foo. And if we get to the foo action, it says routing demonstration, leaves out the index because it simply leaves out the default values because we don't have to specify the index explicitly because it's routing to the index anyway if there's nothing else specified. So this is how you set up basic linking dynamically by simply setting the module, the controller, and the next page, and Shopware will assemble you a link. Another useful thing are snippets. Snippets are little parts of text which are identified by a unique name and allow translation of different parts of text or different words on your page. So a good candidate for this to be extracted into a snippet is this next page thing here. So I'm just gonna put it into a new line, and we define a snippet, or we say that we tell Smarty to put a snippet somewhere by saying as, curly braces, as, and then specifying the name of the snippet. I'll call it next page, or let's say routing demonstration next page to make it a bit more clear. And we have to close it. So this tells Smarty to look for a snippet named routing demonstration next page. Each snippet also has a namespace associated with it, which is usually just the path to the file which is referenced in. So if I say routing demonstration next page in the file front-end routing demonstration index.tpl, the namespace for the snippet will be front-end routing demonstration index. So I don't have to explicitly set a namespace, I can simply use the name. And if you were to define this snippet in your backend, you would simply have to define it for the namespace front-end routing demonstration index and give it the name, the unique identifier, routing demonstration next page. But I want to do it different. I want to set it up in a dedicated file where we locate all of our snippets for the plugin. And as soon as this file is present and the snippet is not present in the database, Shopware will look inside this file and parse the file in order to find the corresponding snippets. So these snippets are located in the resources snippets directory. And from there on, it's the same thing as with the views directory. So we have to copy the structure. So we're going to say frontend routing underscore demonstration, and then index, and this time the file ending is .ini. So ini files are just simple key value pairs. And we can say now, if we go back here, copy the name, we can simply say this name equals next page, for example. And we have to tell Shopware on which locale, so which language or which translation to use it. We do this by putting the locale above it in these braces, and the corresponding locale is called ENGB. And we can easily add other locales for our snippets by saying, for example, for the German locale, just putting it underneath there and then copying the snippet. And by coincidence, I speak German, so I know the German translation for it. So yeah, we will have our snippets parsed according to the current locale setting of the shop and have them replaced at this very position within the link. So let's check this. Well, this is obviously not working for some reason. Sometimes it is quite a bit hard to understand why snippets behave the way they do. So I'm gonna try to reinstall the plugin in order to force the reload of the snippets. So I'm gonna say bin console sw plugin reload, specify the name. Oh, the command was not reload, the command was reinstall. By the way, you see that the command line obviously shows us a list of all the commands that kind of match to what we typed there. So we'll also find the reinstall command down here and reinstall the plugin. And if we now reload the page, you see we get the German translation. So the snippet is being parsed correctly. And we obviously see the German translation because the shop is set to German. And if I set it to English, you see the English snippet gets parsed. So that worked perfectly.